What's up, guys? This is TheKephas. So it's been a couple of weeks now since New World released, and I have to say that I have really been enjoying myself with this game. I've been playing it a lot, relatively speaking. I mean, as a lot as I can manage right now. I'll be the first to admit I'm not that far into this game, mostly because of personal real-life responsibilities. I have a newborn here at home, so that kind of takes away from a lot of game time. And of course playing other games as well. There's a lot of fun games to play. But I have to say that what I've played, I've been enjoying it. And when I'm not playing it, I do miss it sometimes, and I want to get back to it. So at the same time, I've been taking my time. I'm the type of person that I can play this game, I can zen out and just have fun, just dorking around, exploring, crafting, farming, or, materials, all that kind of stuff. And I like that. That's one of my favorite aspects of this game, is just chopping down trees, finding ore. It's always nice when you find that sweet spot where you can find, where ore is going to spawn, and you go there and it's there. You kind of have your little routes or places where people don't go. And there's a lot to this game. I will say that I made a couple weeks ago, I should say, before this game came out, I was playing the open beta, and I had some opinions about the game. And it was never that the game was going to be bad or whatever. It was more like, the game feels a little jank. And honestly, I still kind of stand by that. The game does feel a little bit janky, but not nearly as janky as I originally thought. It actually runs pretty well. And there's a lot here. Now, one thing I didn't know is that the game does not have any controller support. I have been relying on the controller support provided by Steam. I didn't know that. And I have to say that what people have come up with is pretty good. Now, I have gone ahead and done my own little controller scheme, which I have to say, Steam's implementation of custom controls is amazing. And what you can do, I'm playing this game fully with a controller right now, even though it's not native. And just Steam's amazing for stuff like that. And I have to say, this game feels like it is meant to be played with a controller. And so I've been having a lot of fun playing it that way. That's how I play it exclusively. So yeah, anyhow, the game, obviously, there is a little bit, there's a little bit of jank here and there. And it's hard to explain what that is. It's new, and it's a lot of new games have that weird jank. I mean, heck, World of Warcraft has had jank at times. I mean, come on, it's just the truth. And that's okay. Jank is not a bad thing. But I will say that it's far less janky than I originally thought, and it's actually a lot more fun than I originally thought it would be. Now, is it so much fun that I don't ever want to play any other game? No, it's not. It's not like that. It's not gripped me as much as, say, like Final Fantasy did. That could be because of that game's story. This game doesn't have much of a story, but it is a game that I do like to play fairly often. And so there are things about it that I really enjoy. There are things about it that I do think could be a lot better. And overall, I do enjoy playing the game. I've had a pretty good experience with it so far, even though most of my experience has been solo. I am part of a company. I have no idea what that means quite yet. But yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about it. The first thing I want to talk about is combat. Now, I think combat is pretty solid. It does feel pretty good. It's pretty, just like an action game. I mean, you have a couple of abilities. It's simple in terms of mechanically speaking, what you're supposed to do. It's fairly simple. I don't think anybody would have a hard time mechanically performing in this game. But there is a level of, obviously, there's a level of skill. There's a lot in some classes or jobs or whatever you want to call them in this game. Some weapons, I guess, have a higher skill cap than others. Like the rapier, for example, is a fairly high skill cap weapon. It's different than other weapons. And one thing I will say, having played with the game, and played with a lot of different weapons, is a lot of the weapons feel very different. Most of the weapons all of the weapons feel very different from each other. It feels like they have a different playstyle, a different role, or in a way, or just in terms of how they're meant to be played, and I think that's really cool. That one thing that I will say, if I get a chance to, because I'm getting attacked by the enemies, there's one thing that I do wish the game would actually get rid of entirely, and I think it would make the game a lot better, and I imagine some people might disagree with me here. This is the first thing I'm wanting to say, though, is the game needs to get rid of this screen here. Attributes need to go. I honestly feel like New World would be a significantly better game without this. And the reason why I feel that way is not because I don't like customization. I do, actually. I want to die. I'm dorking around with the menus and I'm getting attacked. Okay. I love customization. I think customization is good, and I think a lot of games have a good reason to have attributes. For example, Diablo 2 is a fun game with attributes because a lot of it's linked to the type of gear you want to equip, and you want to get just enough strength or dexterity to equip certain gear, and then you focus on vitality or whatever kind of build you want to do. Even though it's not very, it's not varied. There's like the optimal way, and then there's everything else. There's the wrong way. Overall, it's cool that way. In this game, basically, you go for whatever attributes you want to use that weapon for. So, if you're using sword and shield and like an axe, you're going to go for strength, pretty much. Maybe some, constitution, some health. If you're a tank, you want to go constitution all the way. You want to get that health. It's pretty cookie cutter, and that would be fine. But it limits you in a lot of ways. This is a game where you can use every weapon. You can use every weapon, every armor, and that's awesome. And that's one of the things that's nice about it. It's like Final Fantasy in that way. You switch out weapons, and you have that playstyle available to you. That is an amazing way to do things. I think that is the way to do things. You don't need to have 10 alts to experience all the game has to offer. You can play everything with your one character. That's great. What hinders that, though... Dang it, I'm getting attacked by all these guys. What hinders that significantly are attributes. Because now you're kind of locked into playing a specific role. Using specific weapon types that fall under those, or benefit from those same attributes. So if you go with strength, you have to go with the weapons that are next to strength, or you could use other weapons, but you're not going to get the most out of them. And that's really frustrating, and I feel like that limits me more than it helps me. I feel like the game would be a much better experience if they would just get rid of attributes and maybe make those weapon trees have more to them, add more customization that way, or just add more weapons in general, or something like that. I think that would be way more interesting than having a generic attribute screen. And like I said, I don't hate attribute screens in general, it's just that in this game's instance and what this game is going for, I don't think the attribute screen fits. That's my personal opinion. That's the first critique I would say I would have with this game, is that the attribute screen is very limiting, and I wish it wasn't there entirely. I wish we didn't have attributes at all. The game would be significantly better. I remember Final Fantasy actually used to have attributes, and then they got rid of them because, for the same reason, it hinders you. It doesn't improve the experience at all. In fact, it takes away from it. And so, yeah. So anyways, that's my opinion on that. I would love to hear what you guys think about that in the comments below. Get rid of the attribute screen, and you would have a significantly better game, in my opinion. It would be a net benefit entirely, and maybe have some other ways to customize your character. Obviously, more customization is good, but yeah. So beyond that, what would I have to say? So, like I said, combat's pretty good. It's pretty simple in a lot of ways. I mean, it's a bit of an action game. However, you have like bows and guns, which feel really good to use. They're like, third-person shooter, which is cool. I mean, that feels really good to do, and it's awesome. The problem with New World, though, when it comes to combat, is that enemies can be very unpredictable, and there is no lock-on mechanic. There's no Z targeting, which I think this game would benefit from a lot. Now, I don't know how Z targeting would work for PvP or for the shooters, like for bows and guns and I guess casters. I feel like it might actually hinder those roles, so maybe it wouldn't be good for them. But at the same time, when I use an ability and the enemy just randomly moves or just like randomly attacks, because like it doesn't really feel like there's much to learn. With a lot of these enemies, there's not like an attack pattern to learn. You just kind of use your abilities and hope for the best. There's a lot of times where I'll use my abilities and the enemy just kind of moves out of the way, and I'm like, well, that sucks. I just didn't get that off, I guess. And there's not really much I feel like I could have done to improve that. I mean, there's not really a good wait for them to attack and then counter system. I mean, I guess there kind of is, but they could. I mean, watch here, for example. For one, okay, so I'm not locked on this enemy. He just kind of runs past me. He attacks, and then he doesn't attack. Now, he'll attack here. He kind of telegraphs, and sometimes they will telegraph. They'll have like an outline if they're doing a really special attack. But obviously there's no auto attack, which is a good thing. I mean, it's more of an action game. But it can be very hard to predict what the enemy's going to do. And that's even worse when you're using a bow or a gun. Which, has ammo that you have to craft. Which, crafting your ammo is awesome, but it really sucks to waste that on enemies that just dodge their head out of the way randomly, and you're just, like, there's nothing you could have done to predict that. I mean, it doesn't feel like a skill thing to me. It feels a little weird, and that's where I guess like the jank comes in. And so here's the thing about New World, and this is what I'll say. There are a couple of different types of games when it comes to like RPGs, action RPGs. There are those RPGs like Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls games, where the combat, in my opinion, has never been all that good. I don't think that Elder Scrolls has ever had amazing combat, personally. Some people might disagree with that, but I just don't think it's ever been all that. However, I'm going to die. What's going to happen to me? I need to heal. Desperately need. Can we kill this guy? I don't want to eat. I want to kill this guy. Okay, good. Okay, anyways, so let me get out of here real quick so I don't die. You can have a game like Elder Scrolls where the combat may not be all that great. It's fine. It's adequate. It's not blowing anybody away. There are games that have much better combat. On the other hand, what Skyrim does have is an amazing world that you can explore where you're doing all kinds of interesting things and carving your own story in that world, right? So it has that aspect of it, the RPG aspect. In fact, one of the biggest things about Fallout 4 is it kind of went away from that to improve the combat, and that's why it lost a lot of its fans. On the other hand, you can have a game where the combat can be really solid, but these guys are just chasing me around everywhere. But what you're doing may not be all that interesting. I'm trying to think of a good game that does that. There's a lot of games, like a lot of RPGs or MMOs in particular, like Black Desert, for example, has really fun combat, but you're just basically grinding. There are several games that are like that, where, it's fun to do, like maybe Borderlands. Like the gunplay is pretty good. You have all kinds of interesting guns, but what you're actually doing isn't all that interesting, even though there is a bit of a story there. So you gotta either have a good world where you're doing interesting things, or good combat where maybe you're not doing interesting things. Maybe you are just doing kill quests and fetch quests, but the combat is so much fun that you don't care because you're just having fun playing the game, right? Now, the thing about New World is that it has okay combat, and in my opinion, so far, where I'm at in the game, what I'm doing isn't all that interesting. The world, and it doesn't feel all that incredible to explore. Now, I have had moments of like fun, like obviously like where I've made missions for myself. For example, I wanted to use a musket and I didn't have any ammo. I didn't want to spend gold on it, so I had to go find saltpeter so that I could craft my own ammo. And that was fun to try to figure out where that stuff was, go gather a bunch of it, and then make my own ammo so that I could try out the musket. Now, that was my own personal quest that I set for myself, and that was interesting. And I love moments like that in games where it's not so much that the game tells me to do it or that I'm following some, script or whatever. I'm making my own fun. I'm making my own missions, and so I think that's good. And New World does have that. There is a lot of opportunity for stuff like that, and I think that part of it is good. But I think that like what you're doing in this game makes sense. It's fine. You're helping settlements grow. You're helping build settlements. So naturally, they're going to need resources. So you're the guy to go out and chop the wood, fight the enemies, go fishing, go hunting, all that stuff. And all that stuff is fun to do. I love the gathering aspect of this game. I love hunting specific animals, especially when I'm using a bow to do it. I mean, it just feels really good. I love running to settlements like this and finding cabbages, knowing where to find the herbs, where to find the ore, that kind of stuff. All that part of the game is awesome. And the crafting, even though the crafting isn't particularly interesting mechanically, it's cool that you can craft everything and you can go find the materials to do it. And just going out and finding all kinds of materials and being able to do everything is awesome. But what hurts is that like the actual missions that you get sent on aren't all that amazing. You kill a bunch of enemies, you open a bunch of chests, you go gather a bunch of materials or whatever. And that's fine if the combat had a little bit more to offer, in my opinion. And I think that what would make the combat more fun is it's already got a lot to it, right? Like there's the abilities, the way weapons play is pretty solid, but the combat just feels a little bit too janky to me. I think, at least for melee characters, it would benefit from learning like a little bit more from Dark Souls. Having just played through Dark Souls 3 recently again, which I think is, I think the Souls games, Sekiro, Souls, particularly Bloodborne, are some of the best combat games ever made. And even though they may not appeal to everyone, I think that they have had such an impact on gaming. And not that every game needs to be like them. I mean, you have like, Arkham style games, and then you have games like Souls, where I think Souls is a much more interesting, gameplay wise. I think it's much more interesting combat. And I think this game could benefit from that. Have more interesting enemies that have attack patterns. It doesn't have to be necessarily as hard as Dark Souls, but it would be nice if enemies in particular were a little bit more interesting. And maybe for melee, you could have a lock-on mechanic. I think a Z targeting mechanic would really help out the game a lot for melee. That way you're locked onto your enemies, and when they get all weird and fly all over the place randomly, you're not wasting your abilities, because it doesn't really feel like there's much I could do to prevent that sometimes. So that's just my opinion. I don't know. Maybe I'm just playing the game wrong. It could be. But regardless, I still think the game would be better if it would learn a little bit from that style of game. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I'm just killing enemies and finding stuff. It's whatever. I'm having fun. But even in spite of all that, in spite of like just the slightly janky combat, I mean, it's still fun. Like, the combat's fine. It's not the worst. It feels a lot like Elder Scrolls. And honestly, like, you're not locking on. You're just swinging about, hitting your enemies, trying to stay as accurate as possible, and you're hoping for the best. But it is fun to, run around killing enemies. I do kill a lot of the same thing, which kind of is annoying. It's more fun to me to hunt specific animals, because even if they are the same, there's like different kinds. So it is fun, and there's a lot of different animals. There's boars, bears, turkeys, wolves, all kinds of boars, sheep, pigs, I mean, cows, you name it. There's everything. I think there are even horses in this game. I'm not 100% sure. I haven't gotten that far yet. So overall, it's pretty fun. And then, like I said, finding all the different materials is also fun. But, like, every one of these settlements has these same ghouly creature guys, and it's kind of like whatever. But it's not enough to, like, I don't hate that. A lot of people don't like, grindier games where you're, I suck at aiming, blind guy trying to aim. That's fun. Maybe just because I suck. See what I mean? So he kind of ducked down there. Wasn't much I mean, I guess I could have been more observant. Obviously, I suck at aiming anyways. So yeah, there's that to consider. But yeah, I don't know. It just feels a little weird to me. I didn't mean to open my menu. Whoops. Get a handle on these controls. I need to get a handle on my controls. Holy cow. Okay, let's eat real quick. I'm probably the worst at this, so I probably shouldn't even be criticizing it, but it's fine. I'll be the first to admit, I'm not the best at this game. I'm not the best at any game, but it's still fun. Yeah, it's funny. Like I said, like it does feel. I don't even know where I lost my train of thought entirely, so I apologize. It does feel a little bit like Dark Souls, in terms of like heavy attacks, light attacks, and it has like a glimpse of that. And I just feel like if they went a little bit further with it, it would make it better, in my opinion. Like I said, that's just my opinion. But overall, it's a fun game. I mean, like, it's fun to build up settlements, even though it doesn't really feel like you're contributing much. It feels like things are just happening so fast because populations are so huge and things are just kind of happening and you're there, but it's not like you're, really making a big impact yourself. You're just like, there contributing, which is, again, that's fine. But it's just kind of whatever. It doesn't really feel... you're supposed to be helping build settlements, but it feels more like you're just getting XP, and that's what you're focusing on, getting XP, getting territory points. That's the other thing. All the systems in this game are pretty cool, like gaining reputation with your territory, like different territories, so that you can, like, get more, like, craft faster, get more experience from enemies. I mean, there's all kinds of cool perks that you can gain in each territory, which is really cool, especially if it's a territory that you, like, your faction owns, so that's also really cool. So there's that aspect to it as well. And what's neat is, like, there's all kinds of different strategies for this game. My strategy is to live in a market area, a place where there are lots of people. Ooh, this is a new. There's a lot of people in, like, say, what is this place? Is it Windsong? I can't remember the name of the areas. There's Monarch's Bluff. And then the area that I'm in is, like, I don't even know. I'm so bad. Oh, there it is. Windsward. So Windsward and Everfall are really popular, right? That's where everybody wants to go because they're really cool zones and they have really cool towns. So those are the places where you want to trade. Monarch's Bluff is not as crowded, so trading there may not go so well for you. It might take a lot longer to actually get anything sold, and you might not even get things sold at all, which it just ends up costing you more in the end. So what I tend to do is that I tend to set up my trades in Windsward. But then I go to Monarch's Bluff to find materials because there aren't a lot of people there. So if there's certain types of materials that I'm looking for that I know Monarch's Bluff has, then that's where I'll go to get those. And so that's one of the strategies that I use. So I kind of travel around a little bit. Now, traveling in this game is pretty painful. You have fast traveling, which costs you a certain type of resource that I don't fully understand yet, but it's definitely really costly, and I don't feel like I want to spend it. I don't like that, really. I don't like that fast travel is gated in such a way, especially in a game where you have a big world. And plus, I've been coming from Final Fantasy where it does cost gold or gil, money, whatever you want to call it, to travel, but it's not all that painful. It does add up, but it's not super bad. This game, it feels really painful to do fast traveling, especially if you're carrying more stuff, which that aspect of it is kind of cool, but I'm hoping that they add more things in to streamline, fast traveling. Maybe you can have, I'm pretty sure you can eventually get a horse, a mount, but it would be cool, maybe you can eventually hire trading caravans, or get a horse and buggy so that you can carry more stuff along. Stuff like that would be kind of cool. So, yeah, I mean, it's a really cool game. There's a lot to it. It's a lot of fun. The further I go, the more interested I am, and I'm really interested to see how things are in-game. Where I'm at, things are kind of whatever, and I've watched some in-game gameplay, and it does look like things get a lot more interesting. Classes get a lot more fun to play, which is really cool, so I am excited about that. Overall, I think New World is a pretty fun game. Where it's going to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, I don't know. Is it the next amazing game? I mean, it's doing pretty good for itself. It's a lot of fun to play. I still love Final Fantasy. I still love a lot of other games. But I do think that New World is a nice game. It's a lot different from other classic traditional MMOs, which is good for it because it feels different. It feels different from other games, which means that I can go play a game like Final Fantasy 14 and then play this, which is 2 different types of MMOs, and I'm getting 2 different experiences, which is scratching 2 different types of itches, which is cool. So there's a lot of fun to be had here. I think it's great that, there's another MMO out there that's pretty decent. I would love to hear what other people's experiences are with it. I'm not really, hip to what the community thinks or what people are saying about it. Kind of just been living under a rock lately with life and everything. So, but that's my experience so far. I think the game's really solid. I think it's a lot of fun to play. I really enjoy it. Also, just want to say, as I over-encumber myself, I really love fishing. This game has a really cool fishing mechanic, and I actually enjoy fishing in this game a lot, which is kind of neat. I mean, it's very rare for me to enjoy fishing in any game, but I think New World has pretty good fishing. So take that for what you will as I pick up more stuff, even though I'm already encumbered. I'm going to encumber myself. I'm going to continue to play New World. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope it was interesting, just sharing my random thoughts on the game, and I wanted to give updates. So yeah, thank you guys so much for being part of this channel. I'd love to hear what your guys' thoughts are on New World. If you're playing it, what do you think of it? Otherwise, I will see you guys on the next one. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by clicking that like button. And feel free to share it with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you'd like to see more videos, you can subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon to be notified as soon as new videos are posted. You can also follow me on Facebook, and if you'd like, you can support my work on Patreon. Links to all that stuff can be found in the description below. This is TheKephas. Until next time.